right, Doug, we are live, Doug, so I'm going to plug you in real quick so everyone can see your lovely face. Actually, I'll do your intro for you once it pops up.
Are you going to turn the camera around the other way so that I can see the audience?
Yeah, I will try. Hang on. But let's start this off. Nope. I'm just trying to find your moderator so we can start this thing. See if this is the right slide because I didn't have enough time to prep. There we go. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to put Mr. Don on the big screen. Did anyone find our lovely moderator yet? No one's looking. All right, here we go, Don. You're going on the big screen. Hang on. Everyone say hi, Don.
Hi, everyone.
Don, there's everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Did anyone find Doug? Because I don't know how we're starting this thing because he said he was going to moderate it. So.
Yeah, that's what he told me too.
Yeah, he told me the same thing. So we're live right now, and people are watching us going, what are they doing? All right. Let me text him.
How's the weather there?
It's pretty hot. How's it there?
It's supposed to be warm today, but probably not as hot as you guys have it there.
Yeah. That's only 90, yeah. So.
It's supposed to get up to 90 here.
All righty. Uh-oh, here comes Nancy.
Oh, it's scary, right?
Well, everything's okay now. Nancy's here.
Nancy's here. Here, Nancy.
I need this. Okay.
You can use that.
Hello, Dawn. How are you?
I'm good. Nancy, how you doing?
I'm good. It's so good to see you. Dawn has.
Never met in person.
I know. Why is that? That has not happened yet. Dawn, as we're going to hear a little bit about Mr. Don Bies, and he'll introduce himself, I'm sure, but he has been instrumental in helping with our STEAM efforts because after we did Anaheim 2022, he came and checked out some things that we were doing. And I was just so busy everywhere, I didn't get to meet him. But he said, hey, we want to get the Great Omaha STEAM Foundation involved because he is on the board for that foundation, was the president at the time. And so he has been a tremendous asset to Droid Builders to help us get that going, maintaining the Droid Builders STEAM name for that, and then getting started on lots of other adventures. So I got to share with them a little bit about STEAM Star yesterday as well, which is really exciting.
Oh, cool. Yeah, great program. Glad Lee's involved with that.
Yes. So I think there was a miscommunication. So we're waiting on the scheduled moderator for your panel. But I am here to fill in and start, and you can.
Nancy's the new moderator.
Oh. I need some
Don, I'm
questions
sorry.
to ask.
Doug is 10 miles away and totally forgot track of time. So
Okay.
you're a teacher. You got this.
I am. I just need to know the topic. And
Well, let Don talk.
I will. I'm going to let him talk, but I'll just ask questions, I guess. Well, let's start, Don, with you introducing yourself and tell everybody your connection to Star Wars and anything else you want to share from there, and then we'll roll from that.
Okay. Just FYI, I'm having a hard time with your audio. Your audio there is cutting out constantly.
Uh-oh.
If I don't catch something.
Should I get on this other mic or?
No, that won't.
No, I don't think it's a connection thing. It seems.
Yeah, it's a connection.
Okay.
thing. I'm trying. We're running the stream and running this off of one Wi-Fi point. So, see if I can. But go ahead. I will.
So I'll repeat my question and make sure that you heard it. Let's start by you taking a moment to introduce yourself, how you got started with Star Wars stuff, and to where you are now.
Okay, my name's Don Bies, and I'm an R2D2-aholic.
Hi, Don.
Hi, Don.
I saw Star Wars when I was 16, when it first came out, and a year later, I built my own R2D2 full-size radio control R2. The whole story behind that, which can go on. Anyway, years later, I wanted to get Star Wars made me want to get more involved in filmmaking, and so that's the course I pursued, and eventually moved to California. I grew up in Chicago, so I moved to California to work. My first film was a movie called The Fly with David Cronenberg, Jeff Goldblum, and I was a mechanical designer, and pretty much have been doing that most of my career. And then I met a guy named David Schaefer, who was the R2D2 operator for Lucasfilm for personal appearances. Because in 1987, which is around the time I met him, they weren't doing any kind of film stuff at that point. And they were just about to launch a campaign of Star Wars commercials. Lucasfilm-based commercials in Japan. And they needed somebody to operate R2, and David was leaving to join Imagineering at Disney. So I auditioned by driving R2 in the archives for the lady that hired me. And basically the audition just consists of me driving R2 and not running over anybody. And got the job. It was that simple. And so continued doing that, doing personal appearances and character appearances, and worked as the archivist at Lucasfilm while I was simultaneously working as a creature maker and model maker at ILM. And then in 1997, I got a call from Rick McCallum, the producer of the Star Wars prequels, while they were working on the movie in London, and they were having issues with the R2 there, and he asked us at ILM to create our own R2. And he'd have the English crew create their own R2. And, well, they had R2s already, but again, another long story. So Granny Mahara and Nelson Hall and 6 other people, we built an R2 in 2.5 weeks, something like that.
Wow.
And I went over, we called it the Uber R2. It had a series of improvements in it to fix the challenges that they were having. And by the way, I have footage of some of that testing if you guys would like to see it.
Yes, please.
So I went over to London and operated R2 there, and then came back to the States, did a bunch of R2 shots for episode 1 here, and in 2000 was promoted to the R2 or droid supervisor for episodes 2 and 3. So, and I actually discovered the R2 Builders Club, I think around the same time, around 1999. I was in talks with Star Wars Fan Club magazine to do an article about R2, and I thought, oh, it'd be cool to look at other people that are building R2. And I happened to, somebody I knew was part of the club, and I said, oh, can you introduce me to some of those people? And they did, and talked to Dave Everett, and trying to remember who some of the other people were at the time. And that's how I came across the R2 Builders Club. So I've been around you guys for 25 years now. And yeah, it was interesting those early days of the R2 Builders Club, a lot of misinformation that was happening, and people that were trying to charge the builders for information. Plans wound up in your capable hands. So,
And
that happened. I don't know who was responsible, but how they did it. So that's my introduction.
and this is why we affectionately call you Uncle Don, because of this connection, correct? Because this is Uncle Don's Corner,
Yeah.
now that I know the title of
Yeah,
this
well,
panel.
I'm glad it's not Grandpa Don.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess I was closer in age to everybody at the time of the original founders. So now we're well past that. You younger builders, I guess I would be Grandpa Don.
Yeah.
A great Uncle Don.
So, what are some of the things, since you've been involved with the group, with Droid Builders for a long time, have there been like marked periods in history where you've seen the biggest changes, or, most dramatic innovations in the way we go forward?
Yeah, well, sort of. I mean, like when I first joined, when I first was aware of the group, like I said, people were. The internet and the boards were kind of in its infancy, so information was a little harder to disseminate to people at that time. And as the internet grew and the club grew, then there was people that were coming with proper drugs. The next one was much more carefully planned out, and that's the first time I believe the Droid Builders or the R2 Builders at that time, it was just limited to R2 for the most part, had a room, and then every year that grew and grew and grew. So that popularity of the seeing people seeing in real in person and having a firsthand experience with it was critical. And I brought George by, I think, was it the third one, the in Indianapolis, and he came through the R2 Builders Club, and that's the first time he was made aware of how vast the fandom was. Well, I mean, obviously he knew how vast the fandom was, but he was really impressed by the droids, and he was taking pictures with his own camera and stuff, and so that really impressed him. And the producer, in the meantime, was like, "Oh, we should have got these guys to do it. They would have been cheap." I'm glad they did eventually, but
Yeah.
I'm glad they didn't at the time, because I would have been out of his job.
This is very true. No. So yeah, that has been a big change in the recent movies, is how Lucasfilm has opened up. And I think we saw it first with Lee being hired as a fan. He was started out as a droid builder and was built his own droid, and then was hired to do a job like what you did here, right?
Yeah, essentially.
So do you know much about how that came about, or did it just, you may know as much as we do, and then how they implemented that going forward?
I probably know about as much as you guys do. I mean, I know that when it was in, I believe it was in London. It was, I don't know which convention it was. It would have been one of the later ones that I wasn't at. The last one I went to prior to the Anaheim one, where you guys had the steam room, was 2007, and that was in London, and it was the 30th anniversary convention of Star Wars. And but yeah, they were. Kathleen Kennedy came through, I think it was at that point, and made some casual comment about, oh, we should talk to these guys, and they went. I did, by the way, I did put my name in for the job, but they didn't, because it was being shot in London. They felt, oh, well, they want to bring somebody over. So, and as it turned out, R2 is not in it as much, so it wasn't as critical. And Lee and did who was the other? Lee and
Oliver.
Oliver, yeah.
Mhm.
They did an excellent job with what they had to do.
Did.
My only complaint was the aging job, and I don't think they were responsible for that. But, so yeah, it was. It was typical of Disney and Lucasfilm to take it. I hope they got paid well. Take advantage of the situation and use them, and it made complete sense. I mean, look at all the amazing R2s. You got, your R2s are far better than any of the film ones. So certainly technologically and everything, the R2s we were using in the prequels were still mainly the R2s from the original films, and we were just, we upgraded electronics and that kind of thing because it was so inefficient from a battery consumption thing. But it was just really a rolling garbage can, and not all the stuff that we were doing, where having a door open and something coming out of it was just me or Kenny Baker sticking behind there jabbing something through, whereas you guys are actually doing it for real. So I've always constantly been impressed by the builders and the innovations and the things that you guys can do.
So one of the things that really I remember when Star Wars came out, because I was in 7 when it came out, and hearing the stories about how the movie was made and how they would do things like hitting wires that were holding up telephone poles to get blaster sounds, and the different parts. We all know about some of the parts of R2 that were parts of an airplane and things like that. So the first thing I would ask is, what are some unique things that you've used to build R2s? And then now that we have CGI and all of that kind of stuff, I mean, do we still see that kind of creativity by, still drawing on these things that we see out with another purpose and incorporating it into a build?
Yeah, well, CGI gets bashed a lot, and unfortunately, it's artistry, but in a different style. It's like painting with watercolors versus sculpting. It's still artistry, but there is something to be said about making something real and having it in your hands or seeing it physically, and so certainly those are the kinds of things that I always appreciated. As far as like different things that we did, again, we used the original R2s. So we only built one R2, and it was the only one that was ever in the films that was built in the United States was the one we built for Episode 1. All those other ones were British made, and so that R2, again, we had to make it look like the original. Some of the technical differences with that was we were handed essentially a list of problems it was having, and it was no reflection on the British crew of Episode 1 whatsoever. George, I think, forgot how difficult it was to shoot a film with the robots, and he was kind of treating R2 kind of like another actor. It's like, oh, I just want R2 to roll across there, go up the stairs, and and then plus then there wasn't the technical considerations taken into effect. It's like, oh, doorways need to be a certain width for an R2 to fit through, or gaps in floors are too wide for that little caster wheel in the front to go over, and so it's going to get stuck and hit and everything. Not to mention that in some sets on episode 1, the sets didn't come apart, or the sets were so small that they couldn't fit the camera crew, the actors, and an R2 operator all in it at the same time. So there was line of sight issues and all sorts of stuff like that. So we were handed basically a set of these issues, and we brainstormed and we set about trying to come up with solutions for that. We made the body out of carbon fiber and epoxy. And again, I think the thought there was, let's make it as lightweight as possible, so that it wasn't, it could move easier. I think that was the thinking of that, or we're just like, that'd be kind of cool. I don't know. I'm not quite sure where that thought came in, but and as it turned out, didn't matter anyway, because the motors and the batteries were so damn heavy that the thing was just really heavy anyway. We also did, instead of doing the articulated back feet, we wanted to get the biggest possible motor we could put in there, and so we used wheelchair motors, and those are the ones that have the wheel and then the motor, the gearbox, and the motor that goes up, and it was a big one. It was I don't know how big that is, but it was big, and of course it didn't fit in the foot, so we had to kind of jam it up through the ankle area. So we molded the whole leg in with the foot in well, actually we didn't mold it. We took separate castings, but we bound it together essentially, so that ankle didn't pivot. And so the shaft went up there. Plus, I think the gearbox was sticking into the battery box. So it had one really big motor on it. And then the biggest innovation on that was the front wheel, because we didn't want to use a caster, because the caster diameter was limited by the size of the foot. We wanted to get as big a wheel as possible, because the smaller diameter wheel was where it would trip up on a cable going across or a gap in the floor or whatever. Because I think that wheel was only 2 inches or something. That's the biggest you could put on it, whatever it was. So we wanted to put as big a wheel as possible in there. Well, the problem was then it no longer became a caster. It couldn't do its free pivot. So one of the guys came up with putting a motor on it so that it could be steerable. But then that meant it had to tie together. So when you wanted to do a turn, the wheel had to turn. So that's where Granny Mahara came in, and we had the Futaba 9-zap radio controls, and he was able to mix the 3 channels together so that when you turn the stick, the front wheel pivoted as well. It had its limitations, because if you wanted to do a really quick right turn or left turn, that wheel wouldn't go as fast as the back motor, so that the whole thing would kind of skip and go across. And then the other thing is, like, we wanted to put the batteries as low as possible so it wouldn't tip over. So those are all the kind of things that we were trying to achieve with that one. If I can share my screen, I'd be happy to show you some. This was test footage that was discovered a few years ago, that Nelson Hall took of us testing it. And let's see.
Yeah. He said, go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, let's see. Where's the show? Oh, there it is. Share screen. Oh, it says host disabled, participant screen sharing. What? Sorry, guys. It's the host.
He's on it. He'll fix it.
I'm working on it. Yeah. Okay, I quit. Bye.
No.
All right. Let's see here.
And while he's doing that, the footage is again from.
So Yeah, it's from 1997. It was
Okay.
right before we went off to. I went off to London to work with the R2,
Right here.
and we were doing a final test.
Oh, I see it now.
We were doing a final test with it at ILM, and you'll see it. It's in the parking lot. We found a dirt road. We were trying a bunch of different places where we could.
Oh, you guys do it.
Okay, try to share your screen now.
Yeah, try to share your screen now.
There we go.
Sorry, they were all trying to help Michael do what we could do to get you on. There it is.
Okay, so it doesn't have any sound, but
And this is not something that's posted on the internet anywhere, right? This is like
No.
a special
No,
deal.
it's not.
Should I blank the screen?
Do we need a blanket because this is being live streamed on YouTube?
Yeah, blank the stream. Yeah.
Blank the screen. Secret information. I know. I'm so sorry to all of you who are watching virtually right now.
So can you see this? Okay, so that's Granny Mahara.
How young Grant was.
And you'll see he's got the 9-zap. He's trying it right there. I'm wandering around looking lost. This is in the crowded. We were working on episode 1's models, and so that's what's like scattered about. The people in the background are actually from the archives. And there's me and Grant. Fawn Davis is way in the. Grant was only 25. No, he's 24 years old then.
Wow. He was so talented.
Yeah, so you'll see as he's going along, we're trying different movements, and you'll see some of that skipping I was talking about. He's trying to dial in the front driving wheel and everything. You also could see here how, because we had to put a big beefy motor on the head, how we needed to. We couldn't get the batteries in. So what we created was this like pivoting thing that pivoted up and then locked in with a quarter turn connector. So that's what at the very top of the thing is a quarter turn connector. And then there's a big red cable that you see kind of looped over. That went to the batteries. And what we made is battery packs. It had 4 gel cell batteries in it that were all linked together, and then just one connector. And so we could slip in 2 sets of these packs of gel cell batteries. So those were 8 batteries and then a 6-volt battery. So we could do a battery change in under 30 seconds. And then the gray cable that's coming off is the one that went to its head. So, and we never, the head could never go 360 degrees. I think at most went 180. So.
Wow. Now, this one is not one of the original ones. This is a newly built one for the
Correct.
vehicles?
Yeah,
Okay.
we made the body, the legs, everything like that. However, the head is from Empire Strikes Back,
Okay.
and that one we just stripped down. And the reason everything's unpainted is because like I said, we had stripped it down because we wanted the English crew, when we got it to the UK, we wanted the English crew to paint it because to match the paint job that they had. So instead of us trying to match it.
That makes sense. And that piece you were just talking about in the previous, I can see it's laid down into the dome, right? It wasn't just standing up.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, it pivots up to allow us to get into the batteries. Let's see if I do it. Watch that again. Yeah. So
Yeah.
you could see, I don't know if you could see my cursor, but
Yes.
that was a belt driven. There's a servo that's off that way, and it was a really heavy duty servo, is a sail winch servo. And then it was belt driven to there. And then this whole assembly pivoted up so that we could get the batteries out. And I think Grant's plugging the head in. That's what he's doing. And then we were just trying on different terrains. This is behind ILM. At the time, ILM's not there anymore. But
I think a lot of us have done this testing before. Oh, that was almost a walk of shame right there.
yeah. essentially we were trying to break it. We were trying to see what it could limit it. You know, this wasn't perhaps the first test drive we did, but it was one of the early ones. And we were just trying whatever we could do. Let's just go crazy with it and pull it out.
And with the original Empire Strikes Back dome, you were doing this craziness?
Yeah. Nothing was.
What's wrong with you, man?
Off
Oh,
limits.
no.
This is mainly the art. This is the art department from ILM at the time. This is where we're trying to go over a grate to see if we could do that.
Wow.
And operator error there by plugging into the wall.
Special edition back in the heart of silver.
Right? Yeah.
This must
How
be
long
another
before
day
this
because
droid gets built? Somebody in this room is going to make this happen. I can already tell.
It's real easy. You just make it and don't paint it.
Yeah. Ben has
Oh,
that down.
This is interesting. That guy there is making the R2 sled that R2 is going to go on to go into the crate. So
There you go.
um,
So is that my ride, dude? Right there. Nice.
there you go.
Very cool. That was really cool. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So Nelson Hall, he's one of the other operators of R2 back in the day, and he was one of the archivists as well, and an ILM model maker. Nelson, Grant, and I were good friends, and Nelson shot all that footage. And when we were doing Grant's memorial, Nelson said, "You know what? I found this footage," and so that's where it came from. So there's actually more of it. It's boring.
You froze on us. And
Oh,
it
sorry.
was kind of humorous because you're like, it's really boring because, and then you froze. So, but that was the last thing we heard you say. So.
Oh, okay. I don't. I think I was saying that Nelson Hall shot that footage.
Okay.
And Nelson and Grant and I were the three operators in the 90s. Well, I was the original one, and then brought on Nelson, and eventually brought on Grant. And Nelson was also one of the archivists and an ILM model maker as well. And so he shot that footage. And when we were doing Grant's memorial a few years ago, he was looking for old footage that he shot, and he happened across that. So I never saw that footage up until like 2 years ago.
What a treasure.
Yeah.
And so I know that you've also been very passionate about working and helping to get his foundation started, which is the Grant Imahara STEAM Foundation. And we have mentioned it and talked about it a little bit. And of course, we've raised money for it in various ways. But do you want to say anything about your involvement there? I mean, I know that your role has changed some, but I want to give you the opportunity, and then I'll probably open up for questions next.
Yeah. Basically, you probably know a lot about Grant. Was obviously incredibly talented. I met him when he was, gosh, it was 1993. So he was just 22 years old, 21 actually, I think, when I met him, and then turned 22. And he was always incredibly talented kind of guy. We got to be really good friends. Because he was an electronics engineer, he brought him, when I was at the archives, I would have any kind of electronics questions, he would help resolve them. And we had two R2, well, one R2 that we used for personal appearances starting in the 80s and into the 90s. And because R2 started getting, the personal appearances started getting more popular, we always thought, it'd be great to have a second one. So we took one of the other R2 units, because we had 12. We took one of the other R2 units and fixed it up a little bit. He cleaned it up electronically and got that one going. So we had what we called the A unit and the B unit. And so then he got to go to, his talent was being wasted working out at the ranch. He worked in the home THX division. So Nelson and I encouraged him to come to ILM, and they brought him on, and then he was a huge success at ILM doing electronics and that. And we built the Energizer Bunny together. And then, you know, and Adam Savage, that's when Adam came along shortly after, and Tori Belici, and then Adam went off to do the pilot for Mythbusters, and then that got picked up, and eventually they auditioned Grant, and that's how he got to be on Mythbusters. So once he was on Mythbusters, I didn't get to see him a whole lot after that. But he was always incredibly passionate about obviously robot building, but just steam in general. You know, he was an electronics engineer, so he had science. He was the only one of the Mythbusters that was actually properly skilled to be in that role, where he was actually a trained engineer. So yeah, he was really into science and technology and even art. You know, he himself was a musician. He was an actor and a writer. When he passed, he had actually started working with a local high school and instituting a robotics program there, and which is still going on to this day. And so when he passed away, his mom asked us she wanted to memorialize him in some way, and so we created the foundation together. So there were 7 of us that created the foundation, and I served as president for the first 2 years, and the only reason is because no one else wanted to do it, so I was the default president for 2 years, and then we realized that we got it off the ground, but we needed people that knew more about it to do it, and so that's when we brought in Michael Pearl, who is a fellow droid builder and very talented and an amazing individual. And so he's now the president, and I just stepped back as one of the board members. And then Michael brought in all the programs that we're currently working with, SteamStar and others. And Nancy has been so integral in all this stuff as well. So Nancy deserves a huge accolades for everything that she's been doing with, particularly with SteamStar.
Come on now. This is the panel about you, though. So, no, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's personally, it's such an honor to get to work with this foundation, and I can't tell you how many times. I don't know if it was like being creepy, but I would like see Grant post things in the forums, and I would like try to go post something, hoping that he would like respond. And I remember like I went to First World Championships one year and was, going and seeing the sites, and somebody said that he was there with R2, and I was like, going everywhere trying to find him, and I just never really had the opportunity to meet him or even spot him in a crowd or anything like that. So it was, I know everybody was heartbroken when we lost him, and the talent that he brought, and it's always been just an honor to get to do that with y'all. So it's really, really cool. But let's open up for some questions from the audience. I do. I didn't even see you raise your hand, Ben. Okay, here we go.
Hi. First of all, thank you. That video was really cool. It's very reminiscent of Ben Burt with the prototype Boba Fett with the white. It was very similar to that. One of the questions that rages amongst the club is the blueprints show the buttons on the front end versus at the back, but in those they had it a certain way. Was there ever some was it random? Was it just they tossed them on? I know licensing chimed in at one point. Did George ever say, flip that around, it looks better? Because I know you said at one point, I think, the droid in episode 2, I believe, was an R4 droid, and George, you tried to cajole him, say, hey, we've kind of established that it's the lampshade style, and he's like, I don't care. Did he have any say in that, or was it just random how they got put on?
They got I have to openly admit, I never really noticed which way they were supposed to go, or what's the majority of which way they were going. So the way the molds were made for the Empire Strikes Back ones in particular, the original ones were essentially all aluminum, or for any British that are, they're aluminum. But the when Tony Dyson made the molds for Empire, the arms themselves were just one piece, and then the horseshoes there was a left and a right. So that's, I think, when the confusion started happening, and whoever was putting one together slapped one arm one way and one arm the other way, and then when you're putting them together, then you can mix them up as well. So to be honest with you, I didn't notice the continuity. I would have actually, if I had thought about it, I would have probably gone back and looked at the movies and see which way the majority of it was, but it didn't even occur to me. So, and George certainly would not pick up any kind of detail like that. George used to say continuities for wimps. And his movies show that things come out different ports all the time. So it's not a detail that he would have thought. I always tended to I thought the two towards the front looked better somehow, but I think that's the majority of it is the other way around. So yeah.
I think you have a bunch more new friends now. Okay, another question? Anybody else have a question? Oh, come on, y'all. I want to tell you that while people are deciding what to ask, I heard one little thing that you said that I did not know was that you and Grant built the Energizer Bunny. Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah. So the Energizer Bunny was originally, here's for your robotics fans, remember Johnny 5?
Yes.
Eric Allard was a effects guy down in LA. I'm not sure if he's still around, if he still does stuff, but his team built Johnny 5. They also built the majority of the Energizer Bunny commercials that you see in the early 90s or whatever it was. And so he had a team of puppeteers and bunny operators that built that. And then roughly, it would have been 96 or so, he fell out of favor with Energizer for whatever reason, and they wanted to go someplace else. The problem is that through his cleverness, he owned the copyright to the design of the drive mechanism for the Energizer Bunny. Not that it's that complicated, but he did an interesting thing where it crabs. So crabbing is when you go sideways. It could go forward and then it could go to the side. Yep. And he came up with the thing. So it was a patent that he owned. And of course, the first thing we did was we looked up the patent and see what it is. But we were told we can't obviously copy it because then they would get in trouble with him. So it was myself, Grant, a guy named Evan Stromquist who worked on Return of the Jedi. I remember Scott McNamara, who helped with the Uber R2, and I worked together years and years. One of the things that he did was also the flying train from Back to the Future, trying to remember who else there was. But anyway, we started working on 3 bunnies, and because the first bunnies were A, B, and C, we did D, E, and F, and I can't remember what they started giving names beginning with. I can't remember what D or F was, but E was Earl. So the E bunny was Earl, and I think 2 of them did the same thing, but the third one had that crab mechanism that we built into it. And Grant was responsible for all the electronics. And it actually made a drumming sound. So when it beat together, you could hear a doo, 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 because the real drumsticks never touched the drum. And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize, because of commercials are heavily, looked over, and truth in advertising, everything, it had to actually run on Energizer batteries. So
That's awesome.
Grant calculated how many batteries we would need, and you know the amperage output and everything of the motors and that kind of stuff. So he I think it ended up being 44 AA batteries, and the reason we used AA is because they were smaller. And so, but how do you make 44? How do you put 44 AA batteries into something? So similar to what I created for the Uber R2 about making a battery pack, I made a vacuum form battery pack that could hold 44 AA batteries.
Wow.
And it was curved and it fit the inside of the drum. So the drum would come off and this like, it was like a kind of like a banana shaped curved thing that would stick in, you plug it in, and that's how it ran. So it ran it. And then, you know, we made several of those packs. And so as the batteries drained, they just would have several more, you know, of course, an Energizer was giving us the batteries. So they would just keep replacing the batteries and on and on. And then they stopped doing commercials, and that's when we stopped working on them. I built it. I did all the cosmetic stuff. I did the sandals. I made the drum. I did the body shape, and then others, my wife included, worked on the skins of the fur, which was this. I can't remember where it came from. It was either Korea or Vietnam. It was a special fur that was dyed a specific color. It was just Energizer was just insane as far as their requirements, and so we built the first one, and we like worked overnight. We had like 2 hours sleep, and we shot the first commercial. And then after that, the team would go off, and they'd have a set of operators. And typically Grant always with them, and a lady named Carol, who's a good friend. She went along. She was a cosmetics person, but they called her the bunny fluffer, and because they were Energizer was very specific that tail looked nice and fluffy when they were. So.
That is a great story. I love all of that. So I have a question about that drive, that crab, where each of the motors were independent programmed, right?
As I recall, no. What it was 2 motors, a motor that did the drive, and then that motor itself was on a motor, so it would rotate. So
Right.
So
okay.
it would drive forward, and then that motor would spin it, and that's how it would go. And then I think there was just guide wheels so that the thing didn't tip over a front and back. It was a bit of a challenge because there's the weight. You know, you got that big drum, and the whole thing's really tall, and so it tended to be top heavy. So I made a ballast weight. So in its butt was essentially a block of plastic that had lead shot in it, and we determined roughly how much weight we would need. That wasn't too much, yet was enough to achieve what it needed to do, and we stuck that in there, and that's how it kept it from falling over. But still, and also it'd be really low to the ground. You couldn't see the wheels, and then the feet are moving like this, and you didn't want the feet to touch the ground, but look like they were almost touching the ground. So it was very limited as to what kind of surfaces it could operate on, and it was very controlled circumstances. Certainly wasn't something you would bring to a personal appearance or anything like that.
Very cool.
And it's big. It was really big. The bunny, you know, is almost 18 inches tall, almost 20 some inches tall, and they still exist. We still have them.
Wow. That's cool. Like, you personally still have them?
No, but the place where I'm working now
Oh, okay. Okay.
has them up on display. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
What other questions do you have? Anybody? You've presented
answered
so
everything.
many nuggets of great information. We are. I'm just looking at the time. Oh, yeah, we are almost out of time. So is there
I'm
anything?
looking-
Go ahead.
I was looking to see if I have any other interesting videos for you.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I have the Energizer Bunny versus Darth Vader commercial. Has anyone seen that?
Show it.
Can we shut that on the internet?
Can we?
Yeah, I think because I got it off of YouTube. So.
Oh.
All right.
All right. Now, we didn't make the bunny for this one, just FYI. This was the bunny that Eric Allard and his team made, and they operated it. But I was integral, and I was Darth Vader's assistant. I was having character appearances, and Darth Vader's played by a guy named Tom Bewley, and Tom was the Midwest Vader for during Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, and then we used him for a bunch of the Japanese commercials. So yeah, here's the.
I don't think we can hear audio. We can still see it though.
You can't hear the audio?
No. But if it's on YouTube, they can look it up. We'll just watch.
Wait, let me see. Oh, okay. Well, then I'll talk you through it. So this is actually the shorter commercial. There was a 90-second commercial. So this is obviously all original footage from the film. And they recreated the Cloud City carbon freezing chamber in a studio in Los Angeles. So that's the recreation. This is all our footage. That's me wielding the lightsaber there.
Ah. Super Volt.
So
That's awesome.
the lightsaber was, because obviously original lightsabers don't unscrew in the bottom. I took a Maglite, a four cell Maglite, big, battery powered flashlight, and it was black, and I machined off the anodizing, and that's what he unscrews. So that lightsaber was specially made for that, and I have that. I own that. So
Cool. Very cool. Thank you so much, Don.
thank you.
We really appreciate you being flexible since you had to get a different moderator. I hope I did okay. And appreciate your time. And I do want to just go ahead and give a shout out. And I think you might know that the Battleys are here. And Michael, I don't know if you can see them. I don't know if the camera's on them, but he can come up. And he was part of the 4-person steering team. You, Michael, myself, and this Michael that got us rolling on that partnership with Grant Imahara and the Droid Builder STEAM Academy. So I want to be sure and give him a shout out too, because he's been amazing to get that going and to keep it going.
It was him and Josh Montgomery that we had. Matter of fact, I was having, trying to remember who, Josh and Michael and his wife, that we had dinner at Anaheim, and that's when the whole idea started percolating about going forward.
So we appreciate everything that y'all have done and that you have done to help support that, and for continuing to come out and share your fabulous stories and your expertise with the droid building community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Keep up the good work, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Enjoy the rest of the con.